consent my son or any child in the school district to being masked. Shame on you.
Parents in campus say they've been let down and that things have only gotten worse as the year has gone on. Their issues lie not only with COVID guidance the district is following, but even the curriculum they're choosing. K2's Kelly Ozier live in campus with the story you just heard from the district, Kelly.
Sure did. And while they didn't address the mask conversation that has been happening, they did address the race and curriculum questions that were brought up in that board meeting. They said to us today, in part, that our focus on equity is the mission of the district to see and serve each student. But last week, parents faced off in front of the school board to have their voices heard, but at times it turned threatening.
Next, we'll move on to item number 6, public comment.
Multiple parents stepped up last week in front of the Camas School District Board, voicing their frustrations on many topics, from race to sex education to coronavirus guidelines.
It's time to remove the masks from our children's faces to allow them to have oxygen for their brain to think.
It was that last topic that had parents threatening to remove their students from the district if changes weren't made.
Teachers are punishing these kids when they don't social distance. They are sending kids to timeout, taking away snack from entire classes, shaming them for being kids. I demand that this is addressed and a change is made at a district level. These kids are muzzled.
But the threats left teachers shaken and concerned.
I am giving you the opportunity to correct this before I begin publicly posting the school, grade, and teacher or staff member's name where this is happening. I know we are all aware of how powerful social media is.
So much so that they didn't want to speak with us on camera. Instead, a teacher from another district, Cheyenne Montgomery, is stepping up because she says what happened last week went too far.
I mean, I've certainly had some hard conversations this year with parents, or at least once I have, twice. That's different than having somebody threaten to put your information online.
So Cheyenne works regularly with Camas School District teachers, and she says many of them are very concerned about their safety and the direction things are going. Now, the district has made a plan already for next year. So far, that does include 4-day weeks and mask wearing, which parents say they are unhappy with. Reporting live in Camas, Kelly Ozier, K2.
Okay, my name is Brandy Hayward, Heaward. Address is on Everett Street in Camas. My husband and I are both Camas graduates, and I'm a former district employee. I'm also a third-year Citizens Advisory Committee member, which is also known as a CAC. Our 3 children have been in the district up until the fall of 2020, which is when we made the decision to homeschool. Last summer, I discovered the district's equity website. Some of the things on this website maybe questions the district's intentions. I was concerned about the quote on the website that said, "Our staff is learning to teach through the lens of the critical race theory." I have asked twice about the equity site in our CAC meetings. Every time I am told that the equity committee is in charge of it, which is led by both of the assistant superintendents. At the March 22nd school board meeting, I asked the school board to take action and advise the equity committee to remove the CRT statement, as I hope that was not the true stance of the school district. By the next week, it was removed, but then I saw 2 new job listings for equity coaches. One for the elementary and one for the middle school level. Parts of the job description listed are concerning. Who and how were these positions approved, and how are they being funded when the budget is already in shortfall from enrollment drops? Last week on Monday, May 3rd, we had our monthly CAC meeting. I would encourage people to do a public records request to get the recording of that meeting, as it contains valuable information that would never be explained in a public setting otherwise. Dr. Williams, the assistant superintendent, presented us with the strategic plan, the equity, and anti-racism. She explained that this is the new equity plan being drafted right now, and then it would begin to be implemented in August with staff. We had a short Q&A, and I was able to directly ask Dr. Williams what the difference is between critical race theory and culturally responsive teaching, which is the newest terms the district is now using, and if they are indeed connected. At the end of her roundabout explanation, she said, quote, "I think they complement each other well," end quote. Critical race theory, no matter how it is worded, is teaching children racism. It is teaching children to judge their peers and their own abilities based on their skin color, not by character or anything else, and this is wrong. CRT has been banned in several states, including our neighboring state of Idaho, but now our Washington governor recently signed a bill mandating it in our Washington schools. This is an uphill battle now more than ever. For the parents, teachers, and staff here and watching who agree this isn't right but are afraid to speak up, I see you, I hear you, and know you are not alone. I want to encourage parents to use their voice right now to stand up for their children. If you are able, take your children out of the public school system. Please keep in mind that this is a business. If you don't like, just like any other business, if you don't like their business model and how they serve their customers, take your money and business elsewhere. Before your children are being drowned in ideological indoctrination and suffocated through their masks at school, I implore you to take back your power and say enough is enough.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Rubano, R-U-B-A-N-O. I live at 1216 Northeast 6th Avenue. I am speaking this evening on behalf of my son, Luke Rubano. My findings raise significant concerns both medically and legally of the current mask policy in place. Masks are ineffective for the purpose claimed by the mandate, potentially harmful, and only authorized for use by an emergency use authorization. All parties mandating the use of face masks are not only willfully ignoring established science, but are engaging in what amounts to a whole school district clinical experimental trial. Regardless of the lack of safety and efficacy behind the decision to require a child to wear a mask, it is illegal to mandate EUA-approved investigational medical therapies without informed consent. The statute granting the FDA the power to authorize a medical product of emergency use requires that the person being administered the unapproved product be advised of his or her right to refuse administration of the product. This statute further recognizes the well-settled doctrine that medical experiments or clinical research may not be performed on human subjects without the express informed consent of the individual receiving treatment. The fact that mask wearing presents a severe risk of harm to the wearer should, standing alone, not be required for children. Misrepresenting the use of a mask as being intended for antimicrobial or antiviral protection and/or misrepresenting masks for use as infection prevention or reduction is a deceptive practice under the Federal Trade Commission. It is clear there is no waiver of liability under deceptive practices, even under a state of emergency. As such, forcing children to wear masks, or similarly forcing the use of any other non-FDA-approved medical product without the child or the child's parental consent is illegal and immoral. This letter serves as an official notice that I do not consent to my son or any child in the school district to being masked. Shame on you.
Good evening. I'm Kenrick Thompson. I live up on Forest Home Lane. I've lived here in Camas for over 10 years, and I've got two children who attend schools in the Camas School District. One's in middle school, and the other, thank goodness, is graduating this year. I'd be terrified if you still had more years here in this district. Like many other kids graduating this year, our teachers' unions and our districts have failed our children and placed fear, lobbying, and woke agendas ahead of our children's education and futures. In no way have these last nearly 18 months been a positive learning environment for our children, nor has it prepared any of them for college. We moved into the Camas School District as it was one of the top school districts in the state and the best in Clark County. We had a lot of conversations with many about the great culture and learning and opportunities that prepared our children for the future and learning beyond. I no longer believe that our children's futures and education are at the core and heart of the school board and district. This is one of the reasons why I'm pulling my daughter out of the school district. There are many other reasons why I'm doing this, and you'll hear today and in the community the many other parents who are doing the same thing. Let's look at many of the examples of liberal woke agendas perpetuating our schools and our school boards today. Critical race theory, pronouns, sexual education, politics, and lobbying by the teachers' unions, perpetuating fear inside our classrooms, and ultimately enabling illiberal teachers to divide classrooms and target those children who do not agree with their viewpoints. I could talk all day on these issues, but I'd like to focus on just one. Let's take, for example, critical race theory, which is actually teaching children to be racist and judge each other based on the color of one's skin. It's disgusting and shameful. This is disguised in your CSD strategic plan, equity and anti-racism purpose. It goes against everything that Dr. Martin Luther King and the movement sought to erase. He said, I look to a day when people are not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. But yet, here we are, trying to introduce a woke, illiberal agenda and create even more divisiveness and racism by teaching children to judge and recognize others first by their skin color or their pronouns, which is another illiberal push, and their equity rather than on their character and as a human being. We are not a racist country, and your liberal and divisive agendas are being pushed on our children and brainwashing them into thinking that we should judge others based on a characteristic they cannot change. This teaching that equity will reward and punish those based on the color of their skin is undeniably atrocious and downright shameful. And everyone on this board who voted for this and is behind this woke movement should immediately resign. But know this, we, the community, are coming for you. You thought by hopping on the woke train that it would save all of you, but you had no idea about the sleeping giants that have been awakened by your disgusting illiberal woke push to create more racism and divisiveness. The biggest threat to your agenda, and frankly your elected positions, are fed up parents, those parents that are here. We're tired of these woke ideas perpetuating our schools and ruining our children's futures. I can't wait to see the board this next year, as it's going to look very different if you keep this up.
Hi, my name is Daisy Thompson. I have two children. One is a senior, one is in 8th grade. We've lived here for 10 years. Up to 2020, I would say we had a great experience with Camas schools. I feel that COVID-19 was a gift. It gave us the most precious thing, time with our kids to get back to the basics, to listen to them, to hear what they're learning. It also showed us that Camas School District has failed to educate our children. The education my children have received over the last 14 months has been a joke. No accountability from students to teachers or from teachers to students. The decision to not administer the Washington State Standardized Test was one of self-preservation. It was not that the district had our children's best interest at heart, it was about funding. Teachers are not available during classroom hours. I'm aware of an incident that a teacher said that they were busy watching a basketball playoff game during the middle of the day and could not respond to a student until after the game. According to my 8th grader, she has spent much of her days in school watching videos in the classroom and listening to music on her phone. Kids are being punished for playing on the playground. This is not education. There are many states that have been open and successful during this whole pandemic. We are at 4 days a week, and the outlook for next year has not been changed. There are plenty of information available now that shows that children are not affected by this virus, and I am very thankful that they aren't. They are just carrying the fear that is placed on them, and in many cases, not from their own parents. My child's right to fresh air does not stop at someone else's fear. It's time to remove the masks from our children's faces to allow them to have oxygen for their brain to think. Seems like it might be something of fear to allow them to think. It has become very obvious that there is an agenda being pushed in our schools and that has inserted teachers and government overreach in between parents and their children. Shame has been used to shut people down, and masks are being used to keep people silent. Enough is enough. We are fortunate to have school choice in Washington. There are many great online options that are not pushing an agenda and have excellent curriculum that will prepare my child for the future. I will not be allowing my student to continue with the Camas School District.
My name is Kelsey Hartley. I live at 3741 Northwest 15th Avenue. I've lived in the area for about 10 years. I grew up a military brat. I moved every 2 to 3 years for most of my life. This is the longest I've ever stayed anywhere. So my education experience is it's very transitory, right? It wasn't really to build an excellent education, but it gave me the ability to see what education is like in multiple states. especially when I was in high school. I had 4 different high schools that I attended. So while I don't have a master's degree or a PhD, and I probably won't be recognized as someone who is wildly educated, I do want to say, sorry, this is a bit off, but I do want to say thank you because I know you care. I love my principals. I love my teachers. While I can't always agree with all of the teachers and all of the principals' political leanings, I have my own strong feelings about what is right and what is wrong. I see a new trend happening with the equity agenda. It is something I do not agree with. I believe it is motivated by a generous spirit and wanting to make life fair. But as we all know, regardless of how much money you have or what your experience is, life will never be fair. It doesn't matter what race you are. It will never be fair. My concern is that I see buzzwords in the equity that sound like communism. Social justice and using Black Lives Matter as an organization that we want to follow in maybe not their activities, but some of their ideals. Black Lives Matter as a name is a misnomer. If they really cared about Black lives, there would be major unrest in the ghettos, places like Chicago, LA. I know that there have been horrible, abysmal things, behavior of racism in our schools. I think a majority of us would call them heinous. And it breaks my heart that any child on a bus would be told they need to sit on the back of the bus because of what color skin we have. I really don't think that any of us would disagree with that. However, I also feel, sorry, about out of time, that it is not going to work to try to make life fair for everybody. It's impossible. Thank you for your time.
My name is Leslie Llewellyn, 5248 Northwest Burn Ridge Drive in Camas. I have 4 children. My oldest is a junior. I have a 6th grader, a 5th grader, and a soon to be kindergartner, hopefully. They're going to stay back in school. So first and foremost, I wanted to ask the school board, how do you intend to make your agendas, your meetings, your notes, your votes, and your decisions more transparent and accessible to the parents? I don't know how many of you guys have that Parent Square app, but I get notifications from the school every day, 2, 3, 4 times a day per student on reminding me to submit the health care screening for the next day. I would like to get those notifications when the school board's meeting and what's on the agenda, because if something like the critical race theory is going to be on the agenda, I want to know. I want to be informed. I want you to be open. I want you to be transparent. And I would like for you to be accountable for your agenda, for your discussions, and most importantly, for your votes and the ultimate decisions that you as a board make. That to me is a #1 priority. I felt like during the pandemic, there was a light just shone on the school district, shone on the schools, what our kids were being taught, what they weren't being taught, probably more importantly, and where we could grow. What can we learn from the pandemic? How can we change to make this a better system and the best school district that we deserve? Throughout the pandemic, we were told that the safety of our students and the staff in the schools was the #1 priority. That was the number one priority. Everybody's safety and health was the number one priority. That was the driving decision to shut the schools down. With that in mind, I'm asking the board, what is your position on the drug detox center that's been proposed next to Dorothy Fox Elementary School? Because as I understand it, to date, you've been entirely silent. There's no official statement. And this is a very serious and dangerous situation that is proposed to be put not just close to an elementary school, but directly adjacent to it. If we are to believe that the health and safety of our staff, our administrators, our teachers, and our students is of utmost importance, why have you been silent on the drug detox facility? Because whether you like it or not, these mixed zones are in existence next to other elementary schools and other public schools. You're setting a very, very, very bad precedent and a slippery slope for a dangerous situation to pop up, not only just at one isolated school, but potentially elsewhere throughout the district. So I would really like answers to what the school board's position is on the drug detox center with respect to Dorothy Fox Elementary School. And finally, I would like to know, and I would like access and transparency and accountability. I want to see some numbers from the school district. How many children have unenrolled? If I'm to understand the research that I've done independently, each student in Washington State receives about $14,000 in tax monies to go towards their education per year. Now, if a family opts out of the public school system and decides to go to private school or charter school or homeschool, the money doesn't follow the backpack. So I want to see some stats. I want to see some data and information. How many people have unenrolled? What is the budget deficit that you're working with? And what are you going to do about that deficit? Are we going to be asked for more levies? Are we going to be asked for more money when our children have been at home for a full year, not even getting the benefit of the services that we pay for with our tax dollars? So I want to see enrollment numbers. I want to see money numbers. I want to see what are you doing? How are you going to make that gap up? I want to see test scores. How far behind are we? The parents deserve that. We need to know how far behind are our kids, because Washington State is one of the very last states to open up. We just moved here. Well, I grew up in the Washington area, in Washington. Sorry. But we moved back here from a private school system to a public school system. And I don't understand why we don't have more accessibility and transparency from the school board. And I want to know what you guys are talking about, when you are meeting, and what the agenda is. And if I'm going to get it on, the parent app, I should be notified of it once, twice, 3 times before it ever happens. Thank you very much.
My name is Lindsay Fagan. I have 2 children, twins, age 6, that are at Dorothy Fox. My husband and I live at 2543 Northwest 24th Circle. We moved here less than 6 months ago. We came from living in Richfield for 7 years. The last 2 of those years were spent fighting to pass school bonds and fund overcrowded schools. With support for the district lessening year after year, the schools in Richfield really began to suffer, and we knew that it was not where we wanted to send our girls. Like most people that moved to Camas, we knew that the district was the best in Clark County, and it was ultimately the deciding factor for us. Fast forward to now, less than 6 months in, and our decision has been regrettable, to say the least. We have followed the school issues closely. It started with remote learning, then masks. We've taken a deep dive into learning all about the comprehensive sex ed curriculum, critical race theory, equity, and anti-racism, the constant talk of pronouns and gender identity. The list goes on and on. I find it odd that the district has no problem taking on such hot-button political topics and injecting them into our curriculum, but we couldn't even get a comment from a single person in the district when it came to the fight over the detox center going in next to Dorothy Fox Elementary.
It's interesting that the district had no desire to help protect the most vulnerable population in our community. Ultimately, I came here today to tell you in person that we will not be sending our kids back in the fall. The district has seen a significant drop in enrollment over the last year, and I have to wonder if you don't see a trend here. You have delivered a subpar education to every child in the district over the past 14 months, and I have yet to see any plan as to how the district is working to course correct all the lack of learning and damage that has been done. We have heard that the same schedule and masking guidelines will continue next year. Is this accurate? You have placed an unrealistic expectation on parents to play the role of teacher when all of our children should have been back in school full-time last fall. We have all continued to fund our public school system via our property taxes, the highest in the county. Yet many have had to quit their jobs to accommodate the ever-changing school schedule and workload. In the last 6 weeks, we have seen some semblance of a normal schedule at the elementary level, and while I consider that movement in the right direction, I will not praise you or even thank you for that. You did nothing heroic. Heroic would have been you saying in the fall that our district was going to be a leader in our county and do the right thing by getting our kids back in school full-time where they belong. I would have praised that all day long. Instead, you did the absolute bare minimum. Our children had every right to be in their classrooms last fall, Monday through Friday, and you chose not to let that happen. You chose to mitigate the risk, but at the cost of everything else, and that is unacceptable. This is not spring of 2020. We are all well over a year into this, and we know that children are not the vulnerable population when it comes to COVID. Yet we are still sending our kids to school with their faces covered while so many states across the country have been back since the fall, completely maskless and thriving. The flu is far more dangerous to kids, yet we've never seen schools require remote learning during flu season or force them to cover their faces. With a remote option being available to every single family in the district that is fearful to send their kids to school and a vaccine now available to everyone 16 years and older that wants one, schools should be operating normally Monday through Friday at every grade level for those that want to utilize them. They are our schools. You continue to mask healthy children. You continue to perpetuate the idea to our kids that they should fear getting within 6 feet of one another. Teachers are punishing these kids when they don't social distance. They are sending kids to timeout, taking away snack from entire classes, shaming them for being kids. I demand that this is addressed and a change is made at a district level. These kids are muzzled for almost 7 hours every day that they go to school. They have to run around and play with their faces covered outside, even though there is an insane amount of scientific evidence and hundreds of reports and studies showing that transmission outside is extremely low. Any educator, staff, or board member that condones or encourages the punishment of children for these things during such an immense time of struggle should resign. All of those people are in positions of power and should be helping our kids through this, not making them feel worse. These kids have been through hell for 14 plus months and not a single one of them deserves this type of treatment. I am appalled that this is happening and it needs to be taken seriously. You are furthering psychological trauma in our children. I am giving you the opportunity to correct this before I begin publicly posting the school, grade, and teacher or staff member's name where this is happening. I know we are all aware of how powerful social media is. I will leave here tonight and hope this is addressed immediately. It has become very apparent over the last year that there is an agenda here and that politics have worked their way into every nook and cranny of our school district. It's been eye-opening these past 6 months, to say the least. I am sad and disheartened that you, as elected board members that are here to serve our families and our community, they have allowed this to happen. You have made a choice to work against us instead of with us. I could never in good conscience have my children spend one more year in a district that so very clearly does not have their best interest at heart. Everyone that's here tonight, every person that watches these meetings from home, has a vested interest in their child's education and is obviously concerned about the district and what is going on within it. As it continues to crumble and more parents pull their children and move out of the district, you will continue to lose funding as you sit with tons of empty space in every school. Parents are waking up. Parents that have continually voted yes for every bond and levy in the past have started saying no. We will not support this toxic environment any longer. Until you get back to providing the education that Camas parents are accustomed to, until you stop serving us disgusting political agenda, until you start going to bat for every single student in this district, I will do everything I can to encourage those around us to pull their kids from these schools. It seems that money is what really talks. How many more students can you afford to lose before you decide that change is the only option?
Hi, my name is Chris Urbano. I live at 1421 Northwest Lackman's Drive. I am a general trauma surgeon by training. Certainly don't want to be here. Appreciate everyone's comments so far. I have 2 children, one's 16, one's 13. Sent them to Kingsway when I realized what was going on. My son wants to come back here. He'll be in 8th grade. I'm very apprehensive. So what I don't understand is the pseudoscience, the lack of education that's going on here, the lack of, positive movement forward. This is the thing that concerns me the most. So I'm just going to give you some numbers. I'm going to give you some studies. I want you to chew on them for a little bit because this should have stopped about 7-8 months ago from international data. So how many kids are there? 0 to 17 in the United States, 73 million. How many died from COVID? 180 in 2020. How many had comorbidities? 75%. Influenza, 2019, 434 died. Did you shut down the schools? Did you have them wear masks? Did you try all the signaling? No. Why? Because everything is about risk, reward, and benefit in life. I'm curious about how many people spend time in a car, because if you look at the numbers between your faculty, the staff, which is about 75% should probably be going back because they're low risk, but car accidents, that's what I did. 38,000 a year. How many from 0 to 50 died from COVID last year? 20,000, about 22,000, okay? Over 4 million injuries that sent them to the hospital, and then you've got about 2 million permanently injured. So I guess the question is, if the staff is that scared to go to classroom when we know that the effect of the virus is very low. As a matter of fact, teachers are on the low bracket, the small bracket of occupational risk compared to COVID. Yet they're unwilling to go. We've had international studies for several months, CDC guidelines that recommend get the kids back into the classroom. They are absolutely suffering with no consent from themselves and absolutely no support from the institution. There is one thing that's very perplexing to me. And when you look at the website of the Camas School District, you look about, you're reading, you're talking about equity and institutional racism. Let me throw out a stat for you. Do you realize that you not going to class, the teachers, the faculty not going to class, disproportionately affects in a negative way students of color, handicapped kids, low socioeconomic bracket kids? I mean, this is unacceptable. Wake up. They're suffering.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'll give you a little subtle of it. There is a lot of studies, international, out of Duke, collaboration with UNC, and it shows 100,000 staff and kids. You know how many transmissions in 9 weeks out of 11 districts there were? And this was in a high COVID attack districts. 0 kids to adults. There were 32 from adult to adult or kid to kid. What are you doing? Watching these kids play outside, with masks on? What are you doing? It's fractionating. It's very upsetting. I hope my son decides to go to Kingsway next year, but we'll see. You guys need to pick up your game. It is very embarrassing.
I'm Scott Miller. I have a pediatric practice in Washougal. It's weird, the anger that I've had every day because of the people in this room. I talk to families every day, kids that are dying. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen. When are we going to get to go back? This distance learning travesty. Kids at unbelievably high risk. Learning disabilities, autism spectrum issues, all of their services taken away, and they're not considered high enough on the list to be able to at least go to school. And I mean, it just asinine anyway, but to sit in a room and then do Zoom, so at least there's somebody besides mom trying to teach them. But all services taken away for months and months, watching them regress. This isn't one or two kids. This is hundreds and hundreds of kids. And then you have the motivated kids, the straight A kids. What are the data on that? 83% of kids are failing 2 grades, F's in 2 grades. 83%. That's insane. You guys know the data. You see the absolute backsliding of these kids emotionally, academically. When I heard it was 3 minutes, I was like, oh, geez, I've never said anything for 3 minutes. And you're like, 3 hours, yeah, you know. But the thing that concerns me is this isn't, I mean, we have people giving you the data. I mean, outside of what I do, I don't know anybody that's died. I've treated 350 COVID patients. You know that there's treatment? Like these blank stares. Do you know there's treatment? I treat people every day. I had 90 COVID patients come into my clinic last month. Treated all of them. Ivermectin cures. Vitamin D, vitamin C. It actually cures. If anybody would care to look at the data. So my question is, where are you guys getting your information? Masking kids? I walk in and I'm like, what are these people doing? There's kids outside with masks on. My wife just got back from Texas and nobody's wearing masks. Weird. So it can't be the information, it can't be the science, because a whole bunch of other people know the science and they're not doing this. Our kids could go to school. I wrote them mask exemptions. My wife didn't want me to throw a fit with the principal because our church school, so we keep them home. I will not allow them to wear a mask. I didn't let them wear a mask when they went to the airport and got on a plane. Why? I don't know. I guess some of us know the science of that. So I'm wondering, like, do you not know what you're doing? Do you not know what you're teaching these kids or what you're doing to them? Or do you know and you don't care, which is nefarious and evil? So there's either gross negligence or ignorance or pure unadulterated evil. And I need to share this because on Thursday, March 11th, the district said there were 13 known positive COVID-19 cases and 33 known close contacts among Camas High School students who attended a weekend party. High school, we are relieved to report we have not had any confirmed spread of the virus at school. Really? Yeah. It's right along the data that we see. Camas School District Superintendent Jeff Snell said Thursday, following mitigation strategies is so important and likely the reason we are not seeing spread in our schools or classrooms, which is, I don't know, completely contradictory to the data that we're getting out of these high data areas from across the country. But no, it was what you guys were doing. We will continue to follow up as we receive test results. So those test results, all these positive cases, so I start calling the labs. How many times were they cycled? 37 times, 39 times, 41 times, 38 times, 36 times, 38, 39, 37. I've seen one that was cycled 35 times. What did Anthony Fauci say to a cycle count over 34? Those are useless dead nucleotides, and it's a test that shouldn't be used because it's not diagnostic. He said that in October as he was joking about it in a virology video with a few other people, like Michael Mina. So we know it, yeah. Yep, I'm just about finished. So district spokesperson said most of the positive cases included Camas High School players and cheerleaders. Thanks for calling people out there. They got crucified. They had to get off social media. It was horrible. So I'm seeing these kids coming in doing well child checks, and I would throw it out. Hey, what happened? Oh my gosh, the things that they're telling me about what kids were doing that was normal. Yeah, some people decided to go out and hang out with friends. It was super horrible, and I can't believe they did that. And I went and got my phone, and I pulled up a picture of me hanging out with a bunch of buddies in Montana skiing in a bar with live music. I'm like, no, they're doing exactly what kids should be doing, engaged in life. So, in his letter sent to Camas High School families Thursday afternoon, Morris asked parents to speak to their students about critical role they play in keeping their family, friends, and school and community safe and healthy. And I want to know the definition of safe, and I want to know the definition of healthy. You mean locked up? Hiding in their room for another year? Is that healthy? It's not healthy. It's not safe. I don't even know what that word means anymore. So their actions can save lives, Morris said, imploring students to wear a mask, physically distance, limit your gathering, and stay at home and sick. So, yes, that one. So I wrote a letter telling every parent, do what your kids are doing. If you all would get up and go hang out and start acting normally and just letting go of this fear-mongering, then somebody would actually have to, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's that you all need to be removed. I don't know what it takes, because every parent looks at this. They should unenroll their kids immediately. I've been begging and begging parents. It's the only way. Because, again, you either don't care or you know, and this is actively, willfully being imposed on these kids.
Thank you for the time. I'm Frank Alonzo, took my kids out, would not let them come into a school, messed up, just not healthy. But I learned something listening to some of these parents, and thank you parents for giving me, or just hearing someone else that saw what I saw. My kids, I started to see what they did not know and what they did know. So maybe it was a good thing, right? Maybe I should thank you for setting up the school the way it is. But anyway, my dear Ashlyn, all she wanted was going into middle school for her first time. All she wanted was a locker, her first locker. Pretty sad we had to deal with that. But she's getting along and learning quite well at homeschool. So, it's all working out. What do we teach these? I mean, we're talking to you. You're basically listening to us. We're talking at you, these parents, everyone here. What happened to talking with you? Okay, I think it would be a good idea to bring back real debate, and we should really debate these issues. We should be talking with you. Gather around, get in a room, let's talk together. Makes me think what we're saying just goes right past them. Okay, because we hear nothing. That's not communication. I took sociology in college. They didn't say every communication goes both ways, right? And that's what they taught me, right? So maybe it's a good idea we bring back the debate, we bring back discussion, real discussion with our neighbors, with the community, people in the community. I'm part of an organization called Campaign for Liberty. There's 700,000 people strong in the United States. If any of you parents saw what happened in Vail, Arizona, you might want to thank Campaign for Liberty for that. Campaign for Liberty, the best thing they do is, and the most fun thing they do is remove people who are elected. And we have ways of doing that. And they work. So you saw what happened in Vail, Arizona? Maybe so. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk together with each other. Not at you. Not at you. That doesn't work. I don't think it works. Sorry to say that, parents. I don't think it works. Have a discussion with them together. Bring the community in. Let's hash it out. That's what civilized countries do. Civilized communities do. Okay? Let's be civilized about this. Let's get the facts. I mean, the doctors we got a Harvard scientist, we have a Stanford scientist and an Oxford scientist saying, no, bring the kids back. Kids should not be out of school. Well, you brought them back. But they're saying, no. I mean, argue with those scientists, medical professionals, medical scientists. Argue with those people. The facts are out there. The evidence is mounting. What you're doing here is wrong. Wrong.
If you could wrap up your comments.
Yeah. Yeah. So, those are the scientists from the Great Barrington Declaration, and there's thousands of those medical professional scientists around the world saying the same thing. What? Don't you listen to that? Does that make any sense to you? They've been saying it since September. So really, let's have the discussion, people. Let's have the real discussion. Masks off, face to face. Bring in the people. Bring in the community, and let's hash it out. That's how things get done. I mean, when I fight with my wife, we sit down and we hash it out, face to face, and we come to the conclusion.